This is the Yanks Go Yard podcast with Adam Weinrib and Thomas Carinante.
Welcome to a Monday edition of the Yanks Go Yard podcast. I'm Adam Weinrib alongside Thomas Carinante. Stuff is going down. Free agency rolling, live updates. It never ends. And Yankee fans are glued to the edge of their seats to watch Brian Cashman paint a house very slowly. We ain't doing anything, but people are coming off the board. So if you're a Yankee fan staying up all night to see who we get, go to sleep, get some rest. If you're a Yankee fan who wants to watch the world burn, make sure to stay with us because people are dropping like flies and the lockout is December 1st. So the motion is activated. Max Scherzer, Corey Seager, Javier Baez, some done, some en route to being done. Nobody going to be a Yankee. Folks, make sure to find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Drop us a 5-star review along with a mailbag question. We will be more than happy to answer it. Join us live on YouTube, 2 p.m. Eastern, Mondays and Thursdays for these streams. We're going to be streaming on Twitter most of the time, too. What a week. What a day. What a time to be live. Thomas Carinante, Steve Cohen was really embarrassing the last time we did a podcast. Then he did sign everybody like he promised to 12 months ago. The Mets are fully engaged. That's great. I'm not scared of them. I'm just sad that we're not them.
I'm happy for them. Mets, come on. Thanksgiving weekend, everyone enjoying their holiday, hopefully. And then you come back and this is the news you're getting. They signed Marte was over the weekend.
Marte late night Saturday. Eduardo Escobar, Mark Canha, bunch of people the Yankees were never going to sign, but all smart and culminated today.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that you want from your general manager and owner. I don't know. Once again, I don't know what the Yankees are doing. I'm never going to really understand what they're doing. Max Scherzer, I understand that's a steep price. What are the reported terms of this? 3 years, $129 million. And once again, you're paying for age 37, 38, and 39 seasons or 38, 39, 40 seasons. But that's what teams who are trying to win do and teams that have money do. Players cost a lot, especially premium ones who are going to give you the World Series push. Mets are finally in that mode, which I love because, hey, we got the richest owner in the sport in this city. And last offseason was a little bit of a bummer. But it was coming off the COVID year. He did sign Francisco Lindor to that huge deal. So perhaps he was getting a little bit more flack than he deserved because there was a lot of guys coming off the books. Nonetheless, happy for the Mets, happy for their fans. This is not a Mets podcast, but I am questioning what the other team in New York is doing because there's no traction with the Yankees anywhere. It seems to be said they're out on Corey Seager, who the Rangers continue to pursue heavily. And look, if we're to judge anything by the early reports so far, the early reports have kind of been accurate. I know sometimes we're going through the buzz on Twitter and we're looking through all these tweets and it's a lot of BS. It's a lot of just people, grasping for straws, but the Scherzer stuff has been in lockstep with everything that's happened so far. The Rangers were speculated on Simeon. That ended up happening. And now we have Seager, who it seems like it's down to the Rangers and Dodgers. And I really don't know what to think. What are the Yankees going to do? They need to get something done before December 1st. That's all I'm going to say. I don't care if it's a huge signing. I don't care if it's a trade. But based on the action we're seeing across the league, something needs to happen because you have a team like the Rangers who are really bad and they're actively trying to get better. That ups the competition in the AL. Now you don't have a bottom feeder like the Rangers to beat up on, theoretically, as bad as you would last year. So don't know what the Yankees are doing. Don't know if Brian Cashman's still in that sleeping bag on the side of the road trying to raise awareness for homelessness. But someone's got to wake up. Someone's got to spend money. Someone's got to make a phone call.
Let's talk about the shortstops first, just because it's slightly less trending at the moment because Max Scherzer is dominating the discourse, and this could all change in a couple of minutes. Mm-hmm. We could be absolutely, at death's door with regard to the shortstop stuff. But so the hope for the Yankees in obtaining a top shortstop on Monday or Tuesday or pre-deadline lockout seems to now rest in either Trevor Story's hands or Carlos Correa's hands. Now, I don't even want to mention Correa because it's not happening. And in fact, the most visceral reaction I got from reading Twitter all day today was in the comments of a tweet about Corey Seager preferring the Rangers, someone being like, the Yankees better pivot to Correa. And I couldn't even resist. I like instinctually was like, I mean, you're out of your mind if you think the Yankees are pivoting. If the Yankees don't get Seager and they pivot to Correa, like I'll eat corduroy pants. There's no chance. So like, I just instinctively had to call somebody stupid. It's the first time I've done that in a while. I was like, oh yeah, the Yankees are out on Seager, but they're in on Correa, you genius. There's just no way. So if they're souring on Seager, the Seager stuff, a lot of people said the Rangers were, they were in for weeks and then they were out on Sunday when they got Semien. And then all of a sudden, a couple hours later, it was like, did everybody forget that Semien's a second baseman maybe by trade and that you could technically sign both of them if you were a team that's not very good, like the Texas Rangers, who has needs at second and short, and technically you can make a need at third. You can move somebody. You could do a lot of things. The Texas Rangers are very incomplete. So them signing Marcus Semien only precludes Corey Seager if they have a budget. It appears they don't have a budget. There was a lot of talk about Trevor Story and the Rangers earlier. Both Seager and Story have been connected to the Rangers. Not shocking. They're not getting 3 of the elite shortstops. They are not getting 3 of the 5 men. That is not something they're going to be doing, but they could easily get 2, and easily has now turned into reality, I would say. That the Dodgers have Trey Turner in lockstep. The Dodgers have Gavin Lux. I think Corey Seager is a better player than Gavin Lux. I don't think that's controversial. If I am the Dodgers, I try to sign. If the Dodgers are in a similar place to the Yankees right now, if they let Seager go, because, then they're essentially handing the keys to the car to Gavin Lux, who's just also a super question mark. We don't really know much.
And he drive. I don't know.
No, we don't know much about that person. But, if the Dodgers hand over the keys to Gavin Lux, it's not exactly the same as us being like, Anthony Volpe is the 2024 starting shortstop, but it's kind of similar. You're a contender and you're downgrading. You're choosing to downgrade because of you believe in your future, and that's great, but you're downgrading in the here and now. The Dodgers just downgraded in a big way, losing Max Scherzer. So they're in dire circumstances too. So Rangers are making a big old push for Corey Seager. That's the latest per John Heyman 6 minutes ago. We'll continue updating as this goes in case the dominoes drop, because in a week like this, the dominoes could drop at any moment. Right now, the Rangers are making the push for Seager. They're stealing the headlines in much the same way that the Mets did yesterday, when it went from they're one of the final 4 for Scherzer to it looks kind of like they're going to sign Max Scherzer to a crazy amount of money. Rangers making the push. The Dodgers love Seager, but they're mentioning the plan B and Trey Turner here, which makes me kind of feel as if the Rangers are the front runner. Now, it's pretty embarrassing if the Yankees are not going to get in the conversation for Seager. We were told a couple days ago they wouldn't. We didn't want to believe it, and now things are rumbling in the direction of Texas. They could end up with 2 of these lottery tickets. Now, so Thomas, what does this mean to you if the Yankees aren't in on Seager at all? And is Trevor Story, now that he is going to be squeezed out of Texas, suddenly more of a possibility for the Yankees, or do you still think they're lurking in no man's land?
Yeah. Well, first of all, Jim Bowden just tweeted as well. He said it's hard to believe Seager won't get at least 10 years because Semien just got 7 at the age of 31. And he said he's not sure the Dodgers are willing to go 10, but he also would not be surprised if the Yankees swooped in. However, it's late. So a lot of stuff there to digest, but also in lockstep with kind of what Heyman's saying. Looks like the Dodgers are kind of de-emphasizing themselves here for reasons unknown. Well, not reasons unknown. They have Trey Turner. They don't have to spend this money if they don't want to, and they can go elsewhere. Then again, though, you're kind of asking yourself, why didn't they just pay that money for Scherzer if that's the direction they wanted to go in? Anyway, I don't know what the Yankees are doing here. The fact that they're not that the biggest thing that's bothering me throughout this entire free agency is that the Yankees aren't mentioned in anything. I don't care. No. I mean, I do care if they don't sign people, but the fact that they're not even being mentioned, they weren't mentioned as a finalist for Scherzer. I got to get somebody on the phone to just understand why. I don't know why. The Yankees are going to cut payroll in the form of trade soon. They're going to non-tender people, which the deadline is tomorrow, I believe.
Mm-hmm. It got changed with the lockout approaching.
Yeah. So money is going to come off the books. Is it going to be as much money as they had hoped for if they wanted to sign a couple of marquee guys? No. But once again, what did we reset the tax for the last 2 years? Why did we have all of this? Why did Brian Cashman talk about needing a shortstop? heading into an offseason where you were going to get the greatest shortstop class of our lifetime in free agency. Do I think that they're in on Story? I really have no idea. What I'm feeling at this moment is that they're confident in their prospects for whatever reason, because everybody is an unproven commodity until they hit the MLB level. It doesn't matter how good you're playing in the minors. And as we talked about a million times on this podcast and just in general on yanksgoyard.com, Anthony Volpe was bad 2 years ago, and then he missed 2020. He had a very bad 2019 debut season, which was only partial because he was drafted that year, right? He was drafted in 2019.
Yep.
Bad year at his first cup of coffee at the professional level. 2020 canceled. Then he comes roaring back in 2021. Great for the kid. That's awesome. Stock going up. Trajectory promising. Looks good. Future starting shortstop of the New York Yankees and the next generational talent. Nobody knows that. You don't know that. You and I know just as much as Brian Cashman knows in that regard, because there is no way to tell that that is going to be your guy. He's at high A. That is not advanced enough in the lower levels of the minors to get a gauge on anybody. So that's the part that concerns me. But if we are looking at this through an investment lens, a 10-year deal might be dissuading the Yankees, given all of the other commitments that they have, plus a Judge extension, which has been talked about a lot among talking heads. Aaron Boone was just on the R2C2 podcast with CC Sabathia and Ryan Rucco talking about it. CC gave his endorsement for Judge. So you're staring down the barrel of another, 7 to 9 year contract with Judge. And the Yankees are going to probably, if that happens, then you have 3 guys under contracts of 7 or more years. So that's why Story could be that 1 year giant contract we were talking about, or 2 years, depending on what they're doing. Then again, though, I'm just going to keep contradicting myself. Why did they not pay that money for Max Scherzer then? If they're looking for short-term deals to maximize this window or to just not have onerous financial commitments for the next decade, why paying Max Scherzer $100 million for 2 years? Why is that not under consideration? So that makes me think, why are you then going to pay Trevor Story, $50 million over 2 years or $30 million for 1 year if clearly you're not interested in really anything, unless they come out of the woodwork, unless it's like one of those old school WWF Raw episodes where someone just running out of the crowd, the music comes down, you don't know what's happening, and then someone gets hit in the back of the head with a chair. Unless it's one of those situations, then great. But the Yankees don't usually do that. The Yankees are usually just mentioned as one of the highest bidders, and then they either do it or they don't. Now we're not hearing anything. So I have no idea what's going on. I don't know if this inclines them to do other things. But the Scherzer behavior certainly has me feeling very pessimistic about what's to come.
Yeah, I have no idea why they were leaked and before you tell me the difference in money, I do understand there's a difference between $25 and $40 million. But you're telling me they're totally willing to go to 25 1 year for Justin Verlander, and they'd consider 30. They'd consider, great, interesting. Scherzer is much more of a sure thing at this point. Although, again, there's a chance both men could be top 10 starting pitchers in baseball next year. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't shock me. I wouldn't bat an eye. But, Scherzer, it took 3 years and an absolute overload of money to get him. And I understand that. Money is,
what it takes.
Money, you're looking at a pile of money and you're going, oh, man. $42 million. He blew Garrett Cole's AAV out of the water, and that's great, but only for 3 years. And so I would even be satisfied if I heard some BS saying the Yankees were willing to go 2 years for Scherzer or something. Mm-hmm. In the same way I was briefly placated when I heard, they'll do $25 million 1 year for Verlander. I just don't understand the world in which they're willing to do that for Verlander and aren't even willing to entertain it for Scherzer. Now, a lot of people told us that Max Scherzer didn't want New York, that he didn't want to come play here, that he wouldn't entertain us at the trade deadline. He vetoed the Yankees on a no-trade list. He ended up in California. That's great. He finishes the half season in California, and all of a sudden, it's Scherzer people are leaking that he wants to play on the East Coast near a Jupiter, Florida home he has near the spring training complexes. That's the polar opposite we heard last summer. Suddenly he's out on the West, in on the East, and was this all just a smokescreen to protect us from, the fact that Hal Steinbrenner doesn't want to spend the Max Scherzer money, where a bunch of people just leaking that he only wanted to go to the West Coast, so the Yankee fans wouldn't understand the real reason why we weren't in the trade conversations and we weren't in the offseason conversations. It's just because Hal Steinbrenner has no interest in participating in this market. And I've been angry for years saying that no move should preclude you from completing another move if you have the type of profits that the Yankees do. So you can come at me. You can't say they don't spend. We've said this a million times.
Yeah.
They spend for Giancarlo Stanton. They spend for Garrett Cole, but they only spend once and then blame future moves that never occur on the fact that they already spent 2 years ago, which is not what teams do. The Mets tried to buy Trevor Bauer last offseason. The Mets spent $341 million on Francisco Lindor last offseason. They were very active. None of these things worked. They lost a ton of WAR to injuries. They still have, there's a toxic pipeline in that organization. I don't like Steve Cohen, and I don't think he's a good man and a good-hearted, kind soul. But last offseason, he spent a ton of money on Francisco Lindor, reset the shortstop market entirely, threw the Seager and Correa conversations off this year. Maybe Story too. I don't know. But that is a boatload of money. And it's not out of character for Hal Steinbrenner to also spend $340-ish million. He spent it on Garrett Cole. He's eating a lot of Giancarlo Stanton's money. But if he had done that Lindor deal, he wouldn't be doing Scherzer this offseason. He would be saying, you can't say I don't spend. I just got Lindor. What are you talking about? Steve Cohen has no restrictions. Last year was kind of embarrassing for him. He got tricked into the Lindor thing, and that was the only big money expenditure. And it was easy to be like, oh, what happened? Big Stevie said he was going to make big moves, and he didn't. And then this offseason got smacked in the face by Steven Matz, of all people, and then came back and made two mid-size moves, a luxury acquisition in Starling Marte, and then a monster move in Max Scherzer. Payroll is now $265 million. The Yankees is like 212 or 214 or something, just below the luxury tax of 215. We got to get above it. We got to make moves. And the issue with the Yankees is that there are legitimate holes. The Mets had a rotation hole. They put Max Scherzer in it. The Yankees have a shortstop hole. They currently aren't going to put somebody in it. Now, this can age very poorly. They could accidentally sign Trevor Story by the end of the day. And we love Anthony Volpe. I hope he's a shortstop. We just don't know. My ideal scenario is still 2 years of Story or 3 years of Story. I love the idea of a huge short-term contract for somebody to button up that hole and then hope you can toss it off to the prospects. But that's what a Scherzer deal was. And not only did they not finish it, they weren't in the Final Four. The Angels were ahead of them. The Giants were ahead of them. They weren't even in the conversation. And we'd heard all the ownership must be so happy. They got fans to parrot the idea that he didn't want to come here. So you had fans defending ownership and going, don't you remember? He said no to us and trade. No trade. Max Scherzer said no. He agreed to come to what I'm told is the more toxic organization. The Mets don't have a manager. The Mets have an owner who's been, locked in a bunch of financial crimes. The Mets hired a GM who drove drunk last year. The Mets just hired a new GM who ran an opioid ring in Anaheim. There's a lot of rot there. And Max Scherzer saw the money and said, not enough rot to dissuade me from taking the money. Do people view the Yankees? Is there something we don't know about how people view the Yankees? Are they more rotten than we think?
That's what I'm saying.
They're both poor, and there's something wrong with the organization at this juncture.
Yeah, no, that was my first thought. So I'm sitting here and it's one of two things. It's either players don't really want to come to the, because you look at the Yankees are, they have a solid, they're not great. They haven't done anything of note aside from get to the ALCS in 2017 in a long time. They constantly get punked by their rivals. The media here is unforgiving. I understand that the Mets are in the New York market too, but it's not the same. It's the Yankees run the show. The Mets are there for, the back page jokes as well. But it's Garrett Cole on the back page when he has a bad start. It's Giancarlo Stanton on the back page when he strikes out 3 times. We've seen it how many times over the last couple of years. So, and then you look at, just kind of the way the Yankees do things. It's a little bit rigid. It doesn't feel like it's as welcoming. You look at a manager like Aaron Boone. Do players want to do big time free agents want to come and play for him? I don't know. Do they want a guy who maybe seemingly has a better handle on the locker room? I have no idea. So that's one thing. So that's my first worry. Okay, maybe players don't want to come to the Yankees anymore. Can't use the pinstripes as the allure any longer. Can't be, oh, well, you're like, it's like, it's like working in sports media. You get your first jobs in sports media, and it's like, dude, yeah, no, you'll come here, you'll work for nothing, but you're working in sports media. You're doing what you love. You're representing yourself from this company. And it's like, well, why do I care who's representing me or whatever? Like, I just want, I want to get paid for what I do. So the Yankees, yes, coming to the Yankees is a privilege in a sense, but I mean, being a professional baseball player is a privilege. Playing in a big market in general is a privilege. So I don't think the Yankees have the leg up anymore that they think that they do. And it's clear that they don't really think that, because if they're not mentioned in the Scherzer rumors at all, then they're not going for these types of deals anymore. It's clear that they want to do things their own way, or they still think they can build effectively with their homegrown players, which they have done in a sense. But you look around the league and no team is successful with just homegrown players. They supplement that with big time free agent signings or big time moves. The Astros did it with Verlander and Greinke and Cole, among other relief acquisitions. So those are the two things that worry me. It's either players are kind of souring on the Yankees and don't really care anymore. You look at the stuff that comes out here, like Garrett Cole not being receptive to jokes in the locker room, if that's true. I mean, you look at every Yankees interview after the game and it's embarrassing. So like, maybe that's another thing players don't want to be a part of. They don't want to be a part of this like machine that kind of chews you up and spits you out, and you have a script to talk by after every game when you're being interviewed. So it's either they don't want to come here, or the Yankees just aren't making these types of deals anymore. And if they're not making these types of deals anymore, then they're not really differentiating themselves from the rest of MLB. And that's a problem.
We laughed last week when we saw somebody say that Seager will go to the Dodgers at the highest bidder or the Yankees at their price or something. And it's like, okay, nobody cares. Like, and if our price isn't competitive, then nobody cares about the Yankees price. And if the Yankees strategy is really like, well, let's cross our legs and sit back and wait and see if any of the top guys come back to us at a price we invented, like that, no outsider who's never been in the organization is giving the Yankees a $40 million discount. Occasionally you have to overpay for talent. You just do. I understand there is a risk to the Max Scherzer deal. I understand he had a dead arm in the 2021 playoffs. I'd much rather bet on Max Scherzer being effective and valuable moving forward than bet against it. And even if he's not effective, I need an owner who's willing to make a splash like this and is willing to eat the cost. If Max Scherzer's dead arm ends up being more than we've heard about, and he's a $40 million mistake for the next 3 years. Oh, well, I'm very sorry that you lost your $40 million. Somebody tweeted a picture of a terrible looking statue earlier today and said Steve Cohen spent $1.64 million on this statue once. He doesn't care about the price. And then someone quote tweeted the terrible statue and said it looked like Andrelton Simmons, which it kind of did, and may in fact go for the same price as Andrelton Simmons on the free agent market this year. But that is the kind of owner that you have to be if you want to be beloved. You have to. You can't be taking unrealistic, unrepentant, unhelpful giant swings. You can't build a roster out of dinosaurs. You can't neglect player development. But a good and beloved owner has to have the money, be willing to spend the money when is necessary, and be willing to absorb financial failures as well. It's very important. You can't be so risk averse that you're not willing to drop $40 million on Max Scherzer. This isn't a crazy risk. No. It's a good amount of money for a very short amount of time. And any team could match this, and only the Mets did match it. The Dodgers, I don't know why they hung back. Maybe Max Scherzer really did prefer the East Coast. Maybe Max Scherzer's tastes change every couple months. Maybe he did not enjoy being in the California air that much, doesn't want to experience an LA summer. I don't know. All I know is that the Dodgers could have made this deal. The Giants could have made this deal. The Yankees could have made this deal. And the Mets have somebody willing to make this deal. So it's a level of embarrassing, a further level of embarrassing for us to not even be in this Final Four conversation. Yeah. I don't know who's feeding Jim Bowden the information about the Yankees could swoop in for Seager. I really don't think that the Yankees operate in secret, but they don't swoop. Yeah. If the Yankees just imagine hearing the Yankees at the 11th hour, just doink, we signed Corey Seager after completely not being a part of the proceedings up until this point. I would be stunned. It would be absolutely shocking if that happened. Heyman's still tweeting about the Dodgers and Seager. Somebody is obviously telling him to drum up competition between the Dodgers and Rangers for Seager. He's not saying anything, but that could obviously drop relatively soon because today's Monday and tomorrow's Tuesday, and that's it. So it's no great innovation saying these things could drop relatively soon. Let's talk about Gary Sanchez before we get out. Just obviously everything is in flux. The Yankees have to be. The Yankees might not be doing something. I don't know. I'm no longer going to say they have to be doing something. That's one sentence that's been taken out of my vocabulary. I'm as sick as anybody of reading the. I mean, maybe y'all are not sick, but I'm extremely sick of reading the tweets that are like, "It's so silent today. Brian Cashman is obviously on the prowl." It's like, perhaps not, though. Maybe he just is not doing shit. Like we have to acknowledge the possibility that maybe he's just not doing shit. I think I'm done. I'm just done reading those from just like 22-year-olds. Cashman always moves in silence. That must mean something's going, or it could mean absolutely jack shit. He's not doing anything. And he's
he's getting
outbid. Yeah, he's not being authorized to spend money. He's being outbid by everybody. That could also mean that, which isn't necessarily his fault. But again, I'm done reading that insight from everybody. Ooh, Cashman works in silence. Or Cashman also sleeps in silence. Cashman does everything in silence. But if he's working on a move today, very well could have to do with Gary Sanchez, who is going to come up against the non-tender deadline tomorrow, is still a candidate to get non-tendered, probably more so than last year. Yankees gave him an extra chance, ended up below average with the bat again, and obviously below average with the glove, and he's owed even more money this year in his final year of arbitration. Either they non-tender him and lose him for nothing, or they make a trade today. We've heard Gary Sanchez be bandied about a little bit lately. We've heard the Marlins are interested. He could be a piece of a Marlins trade. That's a possibility. I've heard Marlins pitching for Gary Sanchez and prospects. Interesting. The head man in Miami is familiar. I think some of you know who he is. He's certainly a guy who we've dealt with in the past. We've also heard the Mets. I'm seeing Mike Puma says Billy Epler's had interest in Gary Sanchez in the past. They could engage the Yankees in trade. Interesting DH backup catcher type of guy. Anywhere you can get Gary off his feet, get him out of the squat, I'm automatically more interested, but I'm currently not very interested in Gary Sanchez. And everything we're seeing here says that these rumors are contingent on the Yankees and Pirates working something out for Jacob Stallings. So that's the sequence of moves people are talking about. Most of those are not coming from trusted insiders. That's just people connecting the dots. That's just people going, there are like 3 catchers available. So people saying the Yankees and Stallings is about as ingenious as an insider saying, you know, the Dodgers need to be in on Corey Seager. Like it's as simple and elementary as it gets. And so I can't comment on that other than there's an obvious fit. I have seen Yankees and Marlins Sanchez buzz, and Mike Puma did connect the Mets and Sanchez. If something's going to happen today or tomorrow is the day. Do you foresee something actually going down there after many years of being teased with this?
See, now this would piss me off. This would be the thing that if they spend all their energy trying to trade Gary Sanchez in the final year of his team control, instead of just non-tendering him and focusing on other free agents that could bring immense value, then I don't know what this team is doing anymore. I don't know what he would be a part of with the Marlins. They just signed Pablo Lopez to a 5-year extension, like less than $60 million. So I don't know how that would be, because I keep seeing, Yankees like Lopez. Yeah. I mean, I like Lopez too.
Me too.
I like a lot of things, but I also don't have shit. So, I mean, it's just kind of how it works. I don't know Gary Sanchez being a part of a Pablo Lopez deal. How many prospects do the Yankees have to include there? 2? Because Gary's about to be a free agent and Pablo Lopez is now under team control for the next half decade. I don't know what a deal would look like. I don't know, because Gary's he'll be making over $8 million this year if the arbitration case goes in his favor.
Yep.
That's a lot of money. So I really just don't know. If I were to put my finger on anything here, it's an Olsen trade. And Luke Voit will be gone. And they're maybe going to use this Aaron Hicks leverage of him performing in the Dominican Winter League. He's got a couple of home runs and some nice catches.
Oh my God.
Just to find somebody, and they're going to eat part of his contract. I don't think
Remember last year though, when we did Gary in the Winter League and everybody was like, it doesn't matter. And then he actually was pretty bad.
Well,
Aaron Hicks in the Winter League truly does not matter.
Well, no, it doesn't matter. So the argument with Gary last year is that if you perform well in the Dominican Winter League, it's fine. If you perform bad in the Dominican Winter League, then it's like, okay, what's going on? So Aaron Hicks is doing what he has to do right now to have teams be like, okay, he's not completely broken. So maybe we can consider, maybe having the Yankees eat 40% of this contract. And then, we can get a switch hitting outfielder who could play multiple positions. And that'll be the case through what? He signed through 2025.
I can't tell you how sick I already am, though, of seeing an Aaron Hicks highlight come on my feed, and the caption is like, Aaron Hicks 3-run double, and I'm like, okay, I'm at least a little bit intrigued, and then I click it, and it's a bloop. It's gonna bloop every time. Please put in parentheses when you do this. P.S. It is a bloop. You will hate
it. Look, it's better than Gary's performance last year in the Dominican Winter League. I think he OPS like low 700s there. So not encouraging at all. Those are the things because that's the reason they're making him play winter ball to see if he can, I guess, do anything. And nobody else is really tradable on this team unless you want to surrender actual assets. And the Yankees they're clearly not aggressively going after enough free agents to replace a Gio Urshela at third base, to replace a Luke Voigt at first base, even though the Matt Olson trade seems like the most realistic thing. Hey, if they trade for Matt Olson and Sean Manaea or Chris Bassett or Frankie Montas, then we're talking about a completely different offseason and we can eat our words. But it is bothersome that they're not involved in some of these guys. It is bothersome that a Gary Sanchez trade is now taking center stage in an offseason where there are so many other needs, where at this point it's like, you've rolled the dice with Gary for 5 years, dude. You're really you're going to bail on the 6th year, and that's going to be the focus of your offseason. Just see, like I said, we talked about it a million times. Could have traded him in 2019. Could have traded him before 2020. Could have done a lot of things. You didn't do it. You kept him, and he did not do exactly what you had wanted him to do, but he's still solid. He's still fine. The lackadaisical stuff and the drop pop-ups and the pass balls, okay. If you can supplement other positions, that will be ignored a little bit more, but the Yankees didn't do that. So that's why Gary's miscues took center stage. And one more thing about kind of looking at this payroll and kind of defending the Yankees. Nobody, like you said, we're not saying they're cheap. The payroll's over $200 million. That's great, but the payroll hasn't oscillated further enough in the direction it should based on team revenue. And I saw Sweeney Murty tweet today about, the Yankees have $100 million committed to 2025. Like, this team is not cheap. And it's like, no one's saying that, but you're also looking at, $100 million definitely being devalued in 3 or 4 years. And you're looking at Stanton and Cole eating up almost 70 million of that money. And the Yankees did that to themselves. Nobody asked them to trade for Giancarlo Stanton and inherit the largest contract in North American sports at the time. No one asked them to outbid themselves 80 million for Garrett Cole. So not really my problem. You have an entire other roster to deal with. And if you're looking down the road to 2025 and being like, look, dude, they got Hicks, they got DJ, they got Cole, and they got Stanton on the books. It's like, yeah, you need players on the books at some point. And it's also not my problem. You gave Garrett Cole a 9-year contract and inherited Stanton's 13-year deal. Will they both work out in the long term? Maybe. I mean, it's largely been good over the last year and a half, but it hasn't been enough. So you spent money on things that aren't enough, and now it's time to spend more money on things that are going to help supplement that. So I don't care what the payroll is in 2, 3, or 4 years. You reset the tax to get yourself in a more comfortable financial position to waste money now. So waste it on short-term deals now, because what are you doing with Aaron Judge? We're still waiting on that. So if you're keeping Aaron Judge, then you got to spend in the short term to help that. If you're not keeping Aaron Judge, and you have to spend in the long term to supplement his loss. So it seems like there's just a complete lack of direction or a lack of vision here. More so confusion than anything, and financial scrambling, which would make the Yankees no longer the Yankees. And I'd be confident in saying that if nothing gets done before December 1st.
It's important to note again that they've done nothing. It's not that they've done some moves we weren't interested in, or they try, or even that they did what they've done in previous off seasons, where they try to outsmart the world and pay for Corey Kluber's comeback and trade for Jameson Taillon when there were safer options available, and ditch Michael Brantley and Charlie Morton on the free agent market. They've done nothing. They knocked guys off their roster because they had to, leading to the 40-man deadline. They got rid of Clint Frazier. Tyler Wade was a surprise, and they got rid of Rougned Odor because they had to protect prospects. outside of the things they had to do by not a self-imposed deadline, a real, true, hard and fast deadline for 40-man roster protection, outside of the things they must do, they've done nothing. They lost their own guys. They added no one. Their shortstop is no one. Jamison Tyone is rehabbing. They don't have a number 2 starter. Their center fielder hasn't played baseball in a year. Their catcher is either going to be the opening day starter or non-tendered tomorrow. They've done nothing. They have holes at catcher, short, on the mound, in center field. That's why we're frustrated. We're not frustrated because they didn't sign Max Scherzer specifically. We're not frustrated because they're falling behind in the Corey Seager chase. And yes, there are stats where you could look, and Corey Seager doesn't pull as much as he should as a lefty, and Corey Seager's defense is average, and they need better than average. And there are reasons to stay away from everybody, but there are going to be reasons to stay away from every elite talent for the rest of time. And the Yankees are too scared of compounding the cost they've already made to take the plunge on any one of these guys because they're seeing the negatives. They're seeing the negatives on Seager. They're seeing the negatives on Scherzer and the dead arm. They are not able to look past the fact that they're adding another payroll commitment instead of looking at the payroll and going, every payroll commitment begats a new payroll commitment. If you sign Garrett Cole and don't do anything else around him, you're wasting his prime. The use of money on Garrett Cole was not a smart and prudent financial decision. They got under the tax. Now, Andrelton Simmons was connected to the Yankees for the first time in real life on Monday, just before we leave.
Sickening.
Then the rumors came out that they're eyeing him as a backup shortstop or depth piece, a la Andrew Velasquez. In what world are you looking at the backup before you look at the starter? Think about words. You're getting a backup plan before you finish, before you find the guy who's playing the position. Again, if that's what you're doing, start Peraza, start Volpe.
Yeah.
You're signing a backup plan without a starter. That should be the end of the Yankees regime.
Truly should be. I don't know. That makes that at least makes it seem like they might be in on a shortstop who's better than Simmons, which is encouraging. But yeah, at that point, start one of the young guys and then have an emergency backup if he flops and whatever. But I think we need to talk about one more quick thing before we go is Corey Kluber joining the Rays. And that happened yesterday, right?
Yep. Sunday afternoon.
So expect 4 or 5 starts against the Yankees next year with a low 2 ERA. See, you and I disagreed on this, but I thought if Corey Kluber got $11 million from the Yankees last year and pitched 36 2/3 innings in the 2 previous seasons combined, and then he's getting $8 million from the Rays with incentives that could bump it up to $14 million if he were to make starts. One of 2 things here. How did the Yankees end up paying more money for less of a sure thing? Because they essentially took his rehab year for his first season back after 2 years lost and said, here's $11 million. You're going to hopefully be a postseason starter for us in the ALCS. Great. Okay. But you don't spend money like that anymore. So you restricted the amount you could spend by giving him that money. And then he goes out and he shows, hey, Corey Kluber, not an ace anymore, but good depth piece, good number, maybe a number 3 for you if he gets back on track. So now the Rays are going to benefit from a price reduction in Kluber's free agent signing, and they're going to get him probably pitching to his maximum abilities after he was utilized for 16 starts with the Yankees in his first year back after 2 years of hardly pitching. So once again here, don't know why this wasn't a 2-year deal for Kluber, just like how we were talking about why don't you go 2 years for Verlander, because you're not going to get out of him what you need from start to finish in the first year when it's these types of injuries. So I got to just chalk all of this up. We're talking about shortstops. We're talking about Scherzer. We're talking about Gary Sanchez. Now we're talking about Corey Kluber. It's bad business. It's bad decision-making. It's a lack of clear priorities. And I think that that's what's happening at this point, because I don't know what the other explanation is. Is the other explanation they're hiding behind a bunch of other candidates? Maybe they have 3 trades lined up and they're going after one of the A's pitchers plus Olsen, plus Luis Castillo, plus someone from the I don't know. I don't think so. I'll tell you right now, I do not think that that's the case, but that's why it leads me to believe that I don't think anybody really knows what they're doing or knows what the plan for 2022 and 2023 are, because it seems like they're just like, oh, we're saddled with Colin Stanton's contract. So, we'll see how that goes, I guess. Like at this point, you should have figured out where DJ LeMahieu was playing next year on a full-time basis. You've now had 2 months to do that almost. Figure out Aaron Hicks's role, maybe bake him into a fourth outfielder because he's not going to be an everyday starting center fielder. And then you look at next year. After that, you should have a good idea with your bullpen and rotation. Chapman's gone. Britton's gone. He's gone this year, so you don't even have to worry about him then. Severino's got a team option. Tyone's gone. Chad Green's gone. So how is there's no supplementation to even take care of who's going to be lost after next year? So I don't know what they're doing. They seem confused. They really seem confused.
The only reason we slightly differed on the Kluber thing is just because I was surprised he got, I'm not surprised he didn't approach $11 million. You're right. It's bad business. I don't know why the Yankees paid him so much money as an unproven quantity. Mm-hmm. He definitely did $8 million worth of work maximum last year. He under 4 ERA most of the time, though. The starts were 4 innings, 3 earned runs, and he barely pitched. He was hurt almost the whole year. If the Rays turned him into something, I would not be stunned. The Yankees turned him into something for 3 weeks, but then he got hurt. So I have a hard time believing he's going to last through the year, but while he's active and alive, I'm sure he'll make life difficult for us. The other one, I understand why he got a demotion. I don't understand why Michael Wacha got a huge raise. All he did last year was suck against the entire world and kick the Yankees' ass. So of course he went to the Red Sox, because that's probably what the Red Sox look for as a top line item on a resume. Did you suck last year? Yes, no. Although you sucked, did you destroy the Yankees when given the chance? Yes, no. Okay, great. You sound like you suck, but we're going to sign you. The only optimistic reading left is that there will be a lot of scrambling after the lockout is over. There might be free agent bargains afoot because players need teams and spring training will be shorter than ever, or it might even be time for the regular season and everything might be affected adversely. That's the positive reading. The negative reading, it sure looks like a lot of talent's going to be off the board before the lockout. The shortstops might all be gone. Max Scherzer's gone. Justin Verlander's gone. So while there will be talent remaining, undoubtedly, looking for a new home, desperately scrambling, the Yankees needed top-line talent. At least one. At least a shortstop, a top outfield upgrade. At least one piece of top-line shopping, and it's looking increasingly likely they're not going to do that. That is it for this Frustration Monday edition of the Yanks Go Yard podcast. Make sure to find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Drop us a 5-star review along with a mailbag question. We'll be more than happy to answer that and go live with us on YouTube and Twitter Mondays and Thursdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Until next time, I'm Adam Weinrib. You can find me on Twitter at Adam Weinrib.
And I'm Thomas Carinante. You can find me at Tommy's_takes. You can also find us at yanksgoyard.com. A lot of content there for you. You can also talk to us on the official Yanks Go Yard Twitter account at yanksgoyardfs. Thursday is the next time we'll talk to you. We'll be live on YouTube at 2 p.m. We'll have this recording done for you shortly after, but hopefully at that point, we're talking about a move that helps in any capacity. So until then, everyone, try to enjoy the next couple days and say a prayer for the Yankees because they need something.
If we're not talking about a move on Thursday, something has gone disastrously wrong. And if we're not talking about a move on Thursday, we're not talking about a move for months. So let's get a move on. See you then.